Hi, Cappies, and welcome to the Capyble podcast. My name is Mix. I'm one of the co-founders of Capyble, trying to make workplaces capable to prevent harm in the workplace. And I love getting the opportunity to sit down and talk to amazing and inspiring leaders like Jenny today. And we're focusing on the UN 16 Days of Activism, looking at the prevention of violence in our workplaces, in our societies, and particularly using tech as a tool. So today's guest is Jenny Rudd, a dynamic founder, mentor, and advocate for gender equality. Welcome to the show, Jenny Rudd.
Kia ora whānau, ko Jenny Rudd toko ingoa. My name's Jenny Rudd. I'm the founder of Dispute Buddy. I'm the co-founder of the Gender Investment Gap in New Zealand. I am the mum of 5 incredible children and wife to the devastatingly handsome Matthew Tomlinson. And I really love my life.
Jenny, you've had this extraordinary career, quite a diverse career, this intersection of tech, equality, advocacy. Can you describe, let's start a bit more with an interesting question. How have these interesting intersections in your life kind of shaped the way that you approach conflict and inequality, especially using technology as a tool?
I think there's like 2 things that underpin pretty much everything that I do at the moment, and they are equality and efficiency. So I truly believe that there's lots of inequality that crops up. Usually inequality looks like, especially when we talk about, in Dispute Buddy, we talk a lot about access to justice, gender and wealth. Like gender and wealth are 2 big things that make things unequal. And the reason why they are is because gender and wealth, if you're on the right side of gender and wealth, you can trample over inefficiencies with a lot of cash. And so if you look at something like legal systems, they are so complex, right? Let's ignore the fact, first of all, that all laws were written by rich men, which makes gender and wealth really important. But also, because the legal system is so complex, it's best navigable with a lot of cash because it's not very efficient. So what's been really amazing, I think, for Dispute Buddy and other tools like mine is we are massively efficient. And so because we're hugely efficient, we've removed the needs of many hours of paying your lawyer admin costs and paying a paralegal to look through and comb through thousands of texts and find the relevant ones. And we remove the absolute trauma of having to reread loads of texts and wondering, you with the person with no legal expertise, which one's going to build your case. We remove all those inefficiencies. Like, why have we got the person with no legal experience trying to gather the materials for a case? It's because text messages were only sent from, I think it was 1st of December 1992, when I was 17 at school, by the way. And we send like 25 billion every day now. So laws weren't written for this kind of thing. And so now we've got all these people that should be gathering evidence, gathering it. So when I come back to, if we put efficiency, like true efficiency into systems, we make them equal. And so for me, efficiency and equality are really linked because I'm leaning hard on the thing that I'm good at, which is efficiency. I'm really efficient. That's how we sold the magazine publishing business that you talked about. We bought this messy, hot mess of a magazine publishing business, and me and Matt, my gorgeous husband, we put a load of systems underneath it and multiple revenue streams. And so when we came to sell it, we were just like, here's the login. And so I learned so much about efficiency doing that kind of thing. And that's where I brought it to the fore with Dispute Buddy. I mean, it's not a very sexy answer, but it's the truth for me.
Oh, Jenny, what an incredible line. Efficiency is equality in systems. And I was going to ask you to zone in on how does Dispute Buddy fill those gaps, but you're already giving me a very good example of that. Perhaps for some of our listeners new to Dispute Buddy, maybe you could take us through a user journey of Dispute Buddy in this patriarchal, unequal legal system that we all operate in.
Yeah, sure. So lots of our customers at Dispute Buddy are people who are in the preliminary evidence gathering part of their situation. And so that all sounds a bit fancy, but really what it is, when you look into our live chat and look at our customers, there's a lot of women who've left abusive relationships and are like, okay, I need to take a step. They don't know what that step is. They don't know what the question is. The reason why I know this is because I experienced this myself. That's why I built Dispute Buddy. So in 2021, I had to go to family court to make my children safe. And my lawyer said, send me all your texts and messages so I can build your case. And I was like, what? Have you not got like some magic platform that's going to suck them all up and put them in order and then you use them? And she was like, no, you just screenshot them all and email them to me. And I was like, that's insane. So I felt what it was like to have to scroll through my phone, look at messages that when they were sent to me made me feel worthless and terrible. And then you relive it as those exact feelings again. So if we put, let's say, if we think of the system that by and large, it's not all the time, but by and large, people are abused. Like women are overrepresented in populations of people who have been abused. So women looking at their phone, having to reread the thing, makes them feel like that again. So then diminishes them further. So they're like, I don't even want to engage in it. Then they've got to engage in a legal system that's built predominantly by abusers, not the abusees. And then they've got to navigate this really complex system, and they've got to give it to their lawyer who, this is a very sensitive, difficult thing. The lawyer needs to use their lawyering to make sense of it, but they've now got like a really dysregulated client. It's just like a real hot mess. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I know from doing it myself is when women, or anybody, but let's talk about women, look through their texts and go, okay, the lawyer's gone, I've got to send you what constitute messages. I mean, the whole thing about abuse is you think it's your fault. You think that it's your fault. So how are you supposed to ascertain and analyze what might be a nuanced, your ex making you feel terrible, or you're going, oh no, I did deserve that. So that's why I love Dispute Buddy and AI and all of the analysis and the neutrality of tech, because there is, okay, we've got bias built into them, but if we look at like the transparency of these conversations, removes the person who's been abused from having to kind of work out what's important, and we just do it for them, and then we give them this document, so they go from feeling like really overwhelmed and feeling terrible about themselves,
having to relive all that,
but also they don't really know what question they're asking
and what they're looking for.
What they're asking. Yeah.
Something that really stood out to me in that, and I think is so relevant when I think about the 16 Days of Activism, the UN's campaign about taking steps against violence against women, and the theme this year being about tech facilitated abuse. And something you were explaining there is just how more and more conflict is taking place through digital channels, you know, text, DMs, emails. We're seeing with so many young people the creation of deep fakes. I'm curious, given you get this system kind of broad level, Dispute Buddy is going out there. I know it's going to help millions of people. I'm curious at this stage, and with your data and things you're seeing, are you noticing any patterns in the way people are communicating on tech when it comes to these things like control or abuse, and the fact that you say so often the person experiencing doesn't recognize it? How is the system recognizing that, or how yourself as a human that's getting to see that at a macro level? I'm curious if there's patterns you're seeing.
Well, okay, this is a really good question, because one of our rules in Dispute Buddy, we've got two foundational values. One, actually, we've got three now, because Seth, my CTO, we built in fun as our third. So not traditionally associated with exiting abusive relationships.
Quite a heavy area. And is that an acronym for something, or is it actually fun?
Just fun. Like, you can make anything lighthearted if you want. Oh my God, you've just left a terrible relationship. Why not have some fun? But the first two are clear and simple and good for all. So clear and simple means that everything that we do is really clear, really simple. We don't add millions of features on. We get really, really good at the few that make a massive difference. But good for all means that every single person in any way that touches Dispute Buddy should come away with something better for them. And so for me, that means when our users connect, because the way Dispute Buddy works is you go onto our website, download the app, connect your phone, enter context and date range, and then you click export, and you get an export chronology and a report, an analysis report of the messages. And you can rerun that as many times as you like, because that's what quite often happens. Then people do it for weeks afterwards. So what is good for all is that we can't see any of those messages. That is what is good for all. Like, we are not a data company. We're not there to read them. But this is really funny. Okay, this is what I have learned. All right.
Yeah.
Right at the beginning, when we were building Dispute Buddy, you and I were both in Techstars together, Mix, and we had a lot of investors talk to us, and I've had to unlearn quite a lot of stuff that investors have told me that even at the time I could feel in my heart wasn't quite right. And That's okay. They're giving experience from their point of view, but we have to remember that. Everyone was saying to me, security is going to be your biggest problem. No one's going to want to plug in their phone. No one's going to want to do this. Everyone's going to be worried that you can see their text messages. This is my experience, all right? You get two types of people doing Dispute Buddy. You get one who does something like this. They'll come on the live chat and they go, hey, I'm struggling with my, whatever. And I go, okay. And they go, well, I actually, my use case is not, I'm not exporting. It's not for an X. I'm just moving my phone to another phone. I want to preserve all my conversations. So I go, okay, cool. We start at the beginning of it. And then when I go, okay, so whose name do you want to enter here? They go, actually, I could put in my ex's name, I guess. And then I'm like, so you do it. They're trying to hide. They're ashamed and they're embarrassed about the fact that they're doing that. So you get that one person, and then they usually sort of let it go. But you get this other type of person, which is nearly everybody. I go, sometimes when, like, especially in the very early stages when we're testing, I don't really need to do this anymore, but I would say to people, hey, look, I can't quite understand what it is you're saying. Would you mind sending me a portion of, like, your exports? And I say, if you don't want to, I really don't mind. Like, it's your personal, like, text. They're like, oh my God, have them. I would publish it in the Sydney Morning Herald if I could.
Wow, the exact opposite. So,
yes.
So that's the vast majority. You're saying a few people, the shame, it's still the shame you don't want to share, but the vast majority are just wanting help. They're like, I'm happy to share.
Help, but they're like, I know that this is wrong and I want to hold up my truth to the world. And I
like it
if a lot of people saw it. So that's my experience because when I think about it, it makes sense. Because when people come to Dispute Buddy, they've had to take a deep breath and go, I've got to sort this shit out.
When they get to that point.
Yeah. They've either had a lawyer say to them, hey, send me all your text messages, in which case, yes, they're ready to sort it out. Or they go, nah, I'm not doing this anymore. Or their friends have said to them, I hope you're keeping all your text messages and things like that. So actually, by the time they come to us, they're like burning with the desire of like, I'm going to show this shit to the world. So it's really funny.
How interesting. And I think such a difference again between people who are actually in the situation, your users and their need, versus those looking to invest in a business, all those different hats. Jen, you shared something really interesting in there too about how, like, vast majority of people, like, we know when something is wrong. We know when that message is a bit out of context, or, oh, why are they asking for that photo, or, oh, that feels a bit controlling. Curious, being an expert kind of in this space and like in the work you're doing, what advice do you have for our listeners when they do feel that feeling? Because I think that is so common. And I know particularly in the workplace, there's times where I think about tools like Teams, Slack, the green monitoring button, the away button. And I know colleagues who like to watch that, monitor that, and then say, hey, like, did you just come back from lunch? Like, oh, that makes me feel a bit funny. It's like, well, why? It feels like you're not trusting. Like, why micromanaging? Why are you watching me? Do you have any advice for when you're feeling that?
I think, so two things. Number one, like, if you think about these conversations, so when your antenna goes up and goes, oh, I didn't really like that, that's usually because you're either in the early stages of a relationship with someone who you don't maybe know them very well, or you're in a relationship with someone that it's generally quite well behaved, maybe. Because if you're on the other side, when you are in a coercive relationship, you don't really think like that.
Yes.
You don't think like that. You just go, oh shit, sorry. Oh, you're right, I'm sorry. So actually it's quite different. So if you go to the former, and here's something that you can get used to doing and by the way, I am categorically not an expert in this area. This is just from like lived experience. Don't follow me for psychological tips and tricks. But I think that one of the most successful things to do is you just say straight away, I'm sorry, what do you mean? And just make them describe the thing that they're doing. And so it could be like when someone wants to belittle you in public and goes, oh, you're that girl that does the thing, and you can say, I'm sorry, I don't understand. Like, so you just get them to just keep saying the dumbass fucking thing that they're trying to say, so that they're the one that says it. You don't defend it, because as soon as you start defending something, you give their argument validity. So if someone goes, hey, your light's just gone green, you can go yes, or
What do you mean?
or
Yeah.
I'm not sure what you mean. Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean. Whereas if you go, yeah, I just got back from lunch, that's got like a defensive quality to it. It validates what they say. So get used to doing that. But the other thing I'd say on the other side, and this is what we see a lot in Dispute Buddy, is people who come in and they export their text with us, and they then get like they get our analysis and they go, I didn't even actually realize that it was that bad. So they feel validated by Dispute Buddy because there's a neutrality. Because what ours will do is, if you're both assholes, it'll tell you you're both assholes.
Look at that.
Yeah. So I actually had some feedback yesterday. This was really interesting from or a couple of days ago, from one of our users. I did a user interview with them, and they said that they were like, you want to watch out in Dispute Buddy for reactive abuse. So I said, I hadn't heard that term before. And they said, well, like the perpetrator's sort of emotionally abusing me for a long time. And then after a while, I start reacting. And they said, look, I found that very difficult to read. This is what this person said. I found it very difficult to read.
I think, you're at this really interesting intersection of legal tech, AI as a tool in there for a large-scale analysis, and it's learning. We're looking at safety, literally it being life-saving. I mean, what about the future do you get so excited about when you think about the intersection you're at, and particularly when you are saying efficiency is equality, and like looking at tech as this tool for that? What excites you most about the future of tech as a tool in a world fighting for equality?
Well, so I think it's probably worth noting that of all of the people that have got legal issues that need legal help, 77% of them don't access any legal help, right? So this huge legal industry that we've got globally, it's like a $1 trillion industry, legal, and it's just 23% of the people that need help. So I perceive Dispute Buddy to be like, it'll be like the global go-to tool to do preliminary evidence gathering for you on your own, so that you go from completely overwhelmed to completely in control. And because digital, as you said, digital communications, they just get more and more and more and more. And so our tool will be able to do that. And so all those 77% of people, and when you say this stat, people tend to have this image in their mind of this sort of like person who can't afford any legal, and it's just not true. It's like just 77% of people with legal issues. They might not be deeply complex, but they're pressing. And so a lot of tools like Dispute Buddy are really, really good for resolving those pressing legal needs, which can end up like, if you've ever been, I find it very hard to believe that you'd ever been in a dispute, Makara, but anyone would try and get you in a dispute, you'd be like, yeah, I can see your point of view. So I feel like, if you've ever been in this situation, like I remember when I had to get a family court to make my children safe, it is consuming, it's overwhelming. It can consume your life. And if you don't have resolution, you can get mired in it for a very long time. Often you don't need it to be resolved it's not necessarily that it needs to be resolved in your favor, it just needs to be resolved so that you can move on with your life, and then give the world what you need. That's why I'm really big on, I'll never say anything like, we can help you win your case. I'm like, I don't know who you are. Like, you probably yourself, I have no idea. I don't know what's going on in your country or what's going on in your laws or anything like that. But like, this is the truth of what happened. So you can take the truth of what happened and access justice with it. Because I think of accessing justice as two parts. One, how do I take my foot onto the train of justice? How do I engage with the legal system? That's one way to access justice. And the other one is the justice bit. Like, how do I have a fair ruling? So like when you said, like, I know you talked earlier about what do I think the future looks like, or what would be a big change? I'm like, get women and people of color writing laws. Like, it's just absolutely fundamental.
You actually get the voices in the system. Yeah, that was going to be my next. Like, I understand, even though we are creating amazing companies with mission driven, we're still part of a system. And I was curious, like, what of the system you would change? I think you answered it then. Like, actually get the voices in the room, make them part of the system. Like, that's democracy, right?
like if you think about the people who wrote laws, it's a very, very small group of people who are educated in a certain way with a certain color of skin and a certain gender. Well, it's not really kind of indicative of the whole of our whole society. So don't we want everybody in our society contributing to the laws and the rule of law and how we all live? Because if we don't, then I don't want that. And so life will be easier for all of us if it's more fair and more just. And so that for me comes back to efficiency. I mean, I can almost see my husband rolling his eyes that I'm just like, I just love efficiency. I like, I don't like inefficiency or mess or anything like that in any way. But I think it's like a really important part of happiness and life, because you can just do so much more. You can do so much more and have so much. There's just so much more in life when things are efficient. What a waste. I hate wastage. Wasted people, right? Like, what a waste. Like, if you think about the waste of, like, if you think about Indigenous people in New Zealand, I remember listening to this woman who was on the Waitangi Tribunal Committee, so we have this tribunal, it's called the Waitangi Tribunal, and they settle claims and they talk about things to see where they get given things to find out, is this in keeping with our founding document, which is Te Tiriti o Waitangi, the Treaty of Waitangi. And so she said, lots of my ancestors, she goes, if I go all the way back, I've got like my mum's side are English and my dad's side are Maori. And she said, my mum's side, they got to land here and they got to spend all their time setting up schools and shops and being really comfortable and bringing in their way of life in a way that allows them to really truly be themselves. And my dad's side has spent every minute of every day fighting to just be allowed to be who he is and live the way that he wants to live. Like the bandwidth that is reduced for that group of people so that they are not allowed to give the world what the world needs of them. Like if you are like a supremely talented astrophysicist, but you have to spend all your time trying to stop people from talking over you and trying to stop like white middle-aged Barry from blah, blah, blah into the world about his mediocre views, not because he's a horrible person, but because he's been taught that it's okay and that he's important, then we're just missing so much as a world.
All of humanity loses. No, thanks for explaining that with like a real life example, because I think we can say these statements, but until you can just see how that compounds over time, it's hard not for anyone to sit back and not realize what a lose-lose situation it is in continuing inequality. Jenny, just a final closing kind of message is specifically for the 16 Days of Activism, which is looking at the prevention of violence against women, looking at tech-facilitated abuse. Do you have a message you'd like to share in light of the campaign?
Yeah, I think I'd probably like to finish with the message of Matt Brown and Sarah Brown from Aotearoa, New Zealand, who run She Is Not Your Rehab. And they say, the future of the world, the only way that gendered violence is going to be solved is when we heal the boys and men who were the victims of violence and sexual harm when they were little and then grow up to perpetrate it, because we also tell them that they have to be like Barry and blah, 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 and we don't cuddle them, we don't allow them to feel their feelings, and then we get surprised when it all bursts out as violence when they're older. So I think the future, the answer is all about treating men with love and kindness and making them feel like they're enough. They're important. Who they are is important, not what they do and what they make and things like that aren't important, but who they are is important.
What a wonderful distinction, and huge fan of the work She's Not Your Rehab does. We'll post some links to that. Jenny Rudd, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you so much.
Amazing.